conferences held each year with international and national speakers and political leaders. Hosted by Family First New Zealand, the forum brings together a national network of family-focused organisations, scholars, lobby groups, church leaders and community groups who are part of a growing movement to bring New Zealand to a point where families are strengthened, marriage is honoured, life is protected and religious freedom is defended. This year's conference will again be held at the Dewdrop Event Centre in Manukau City, not too far from the Auckland Airport, on Thursday 28th of August and Friday 29th of August. Yes, because of demand, we're starting the conference earlier with 3 important sessions and a time of networking on the Thursday evening, and then a full-day program all day Friday. This year's theme is Courage at a Cultural Tipping Point. The culture is slowly but surely waking up to the harmful effects of the radical left-wing agenda and the destruction of family values that we all hold dear. Some countries have even figured out how to define a woman. And at this year's conference, once again, we have an amazing lineup of brave speakers from the US, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. Dr. Miriam Grossman last spoke at our forum in 2012. You may also recognise her from the recent Daily Wire documentary, What is a Woman? But more recently, she's released an important book on the transgender agenda. I'll be doing a live interview with Dr. Grossman from New York, where she is based. Jeff Johnson is an issues analyst for Focus on the Family in the United States. We're also very excited to have Dawn Hawkins discussing the issue of pornography and sexual exploitation. From Canada, we have Amanda Ackman bringing us a warning about the slippery slope of euthanasia. From Australia, we have Kirralie Smith, a wife, a mother, and an activist for biology and truth, but who is paying the price for speaking up. And for the first time in New Zealand, you will get to hear their side of the story. Israel and Maria Folau. Now we're hoping that they'll be able to attend in person. They're keen to be here, but it does depend on Israel's rugby schedule in Japan. But either way, we'll get to hear from them personally, and not via the hostile mainstream media. And finally, we're hosting and recording a special episode of Straight Talk before a live audience at the conference. It'll be a lively discussion and you can be part of that live audience. I want to invite you to this year's Forum on the Family. It starts Thursday night, 28th, 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and then all day Friday, 29th from 8:45 a.m. through to 4:30 p.m. It's the highlight of the year and you don't want to miss it. Arrange to be there. Book your flights today. Gather your friends. If you're concerned for our culture, our country and our families, you may be saying, what can I do? Well, step 1, attend the Forum on the Family. Have your spine stiffened by some fabulous speakers who will encourage, equip and inspire you. Now, the last couple of years have been sellouts, so don't delay. Go to our website, forumonthefamily.nz, for all the information you need. Register today. Don't miss this important family conference. Go to forumonthefamily.nz. Register today.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning from a rather warm for winter Auckland day. Rather glummy, grey and moody out there, but actually wonderfully warm for this time of year. Of course, we've passed the winter solstice. Was it June 21, 22? Which means, to quote the song, the only way is up. We're heading back towards spring and summer. So look, I hope this finds you well, and welcome to Solid Ground. It's where we discuss the events, cultural, social, political, whatever catches my eye over the next 20 to 30 minutes. You'll be following this, if you are seeing this online, across an array of platforms, Family First broadcasts, pretty much all and everywhere. But if you want to comment, if you want to send comments or questions, and always know you can fire questions at me, to have them come live here in the studio, go to Family First's Facebook page or its YouTube channel. And as always, I get to say a quick good morning to everyone. Harrison was, if you will, the winner this morning. He was the first here. Hello, Harrison. Lovely to have you along. Jackie there. Sounds like same weather down in Ratihi. We've got Catherine, good morning. Lynette, lovely to have you. Hello, Chris, and thanks for your email the other day. Darren, lovely to have you along here. Oops, where's my button? There we go. Darren, lovely to have you. Yeah, it is a lot warmer. It is lovely. Anna Marie, good morning. Edmund, if I've got that right. So it's all very small on my screen. If I've said that wrong, correct me. Rabbit Hole, lovely to have you along here. Rosie, as I mentioned, was zipping through Taupo the other day, back in Auckland now. And Adrian, lovely to have you along too. Welcome to everybody. Hey, look, lots to discuss today. I'll see if I can bounce through it all, of course. If I don't, you always know you can join Bob and I again tonight. Political Playback is live from 5 o'clock tonight. Bob and I will be discussing, the political topics of New Zealand primarily. So if I don't get through everything here, maybe we'll pick up on some of it this evening. As I say, back in Auckland after a very quick trip down the main island. As I mentioned to you guys on Tuesday, my first task of business was a sad one here at home, and something I'm not going to share photos of. One of my chickens, or one of our chickens, because they're Rachel and mine, died. She'd been around a long time, so it was not completely unexpected. That was my first unpleasant task on returning here to Auckland, was to deal with a dead chicken. Anyway, these things happen. And good morning to Matthew, just saying hello there. As I say, guys, lovely to have you all on board. So look, good news to start. This actually just came through this morning. I caught it when I woke up. So look, I've got limited time for the United Nations as a whole, but there are some areas and groups doing good work. And so a report has just landed. Her name is, I believe, Reem Asalam. I probably said that wrong, but anyway, she's the UN Special Rapporteur around violence against women and girls. So special rapporteurs are UN-appointed people who often do travel the world and collect evidence and then write reports. Sounds like quite a good job, doesn't it? But her report, which is just tabled, is actually quite significant. First and foremost, amongst many things, to be fair, we wouldn't agree with everything in the report. But one of the things she says is that we need to respect biological reality, and particularly around the use of language. And what she means by that is when we talk about men and boys, girls and women, those terms need to be tied to biological reality. They cannot, as is being done within the trans debate, however we want to phrase it at the moment, it can't be detached and made to mean something else. So that's really encouraging. It's what a lot of us have argued, certainly Family First for a long time has argued. Words need to have based meanings. In other words, they've got to be based on something. And when it comes to the terms like particularly women and girls, it needs to be tied to biological reality and not, the hurly-burly, is that the right phrase, of gender ideology, which basically says anyone can be a woman, anyone can be a girl, which is of course absurd. So I need to take a swig of my coffee as once again I'm losing my voice. I clearly talk too much. There we go. So that's really positive. I can take that off the screen. So that's the first part. The second is she actually calls out, this is the UN Special Rapporteur, actually calls out the gender-affirming care to say it's not appropriate for children. They should not be transitioned socially, culturally, or physically. So quite a damning report, which I expect New Zealand, sadly, to continue to ignore, while many of the Nordic countries, the UK and other jurisdictions are pulling back from gender assignment surgeries, for example, pulling back from puberty blockers, pulling back from all this gender-affirming care, particularly for young people. Again, we can always make that distinction there. For young people going to school and finding that their teachers are going to now call, Alice Tom or Tom Alice, without letting their parents know. The UN, the special rapporteur, is saying no. It's just not on. They're not supportive of it. As I say, I'm not particularly confident. Here in New Zealand, we just do not seem to have, or the government just doesn't seem to have the moral courage needed to actually say no more to puberty blockers, no more to gender transition surgery. It's just, anyway. Good news, as I say, it's from the UN. You can look it up, or I'll probably put something up on socials about it today, but just to put that little image back up there for you. So, as I say, two really positive things coming out of that, and as DD notes, it's quite unusual to come out of the UN, but it is good. I mean, there'll be elements that we won't fully agree with. That's not completely abnormal in and of itself, but I think that was good. And Sunny, lovely to have you along, and Rabbit Hole's quite right too. There are many. We had Chloe Cole over last year from the United States, and actually we're working on and talking with some detransitioners here in New Zealand. Of course, the activists don't want you to know about these stories. They don't want you to know about the stats. They don't want to know just how dangerous all of this is psychologically, and of course, physically when you mutilate the body. So long and short, more on the long side being me. This is a good report for once coming out of the UN. Inside the other news, this is probably not going to display so well for you because it's quite a big mural, but it's a political point I quickly wanted to make. When I was in Wellington, we took our foster daughter to the Wellington Museum. So not Te Papa, we went there too, but the Wellington Museum, which is actually pretty cool. And in the boardroom, the old boardroom of the Wellington Harbour Board, is piles and piles of photos of men, people who used to be the chairman. And so at some point in time, the museum decided, and somewhat rightly, to say, look, we need to balance this out. And they put together this, I'm not even sure what you would call it. I should have thought about that. It's not really a mural. It's, oh my Lord, I forgot. I've gone blank. Tapestry of a sort of women to sort of balance things out. And that's actually fine. That's not my comment. And I'm sorry I can't easily zoom into it. But what struck me is that every woman here, by and large, particularly in the current times, are all left or far left. You've got Helen Clark. You've got the death doctor, Margaret Sparrow. I mean, she's deceased now. You've got Lord, the singer. I think you've got Tory Farnell. Long and short, it's just filled with left-wing women. And Rachel and I were looking across it and go, well, where's Jenny Shipley, for example, New Zealand's first Prime Minister? Where's Nicola Willis as our Minister of Finance, for example? Nowhere to be seen. So it's only a small point, but it's really just to illustrate to you, and again, I'm sorry I can't zoom in, but as I say, apart from the likes of Kate Shepherd, there's no one there, and I'm not saying Kate's left or right wing, but it was just striking as we looked at all these women's cameos. That was the word I was looking for earlier. These women's cameos. None of them were from the right, and this is the stuff which they're feeding to children. The only heroes, if you will, or heroines, if we were to use the right language, are left-wing women. And again, this shouldn't surprise us. We're surrounded, we're awash with these narratives about us in society. And you hear me talk about it quite often when it comes to the media, or in this case, museum and our libraries are just as bad. Not all and every one of them, but all that they promote are their views. All that they promote are their views, and they will not tolerate, and effectively they censor any others. So, as I say, there was that tapestry with the cameos, all left-wing. When you think of, I don't know, street names, more often than not, left-wing figures. It just goes on and on and on. It is quite funny and sad, but just something to be aware of. And someone said collage, which is exactly right. It's a collage of cameos. Anyway, it was just a small point, but typical me, I make a lot of it. I thought I'd just quickly actually take another sip of coffee. I think I'm talking too much, guys. There we go. And thank you for the comments coming in. I'm very much appreciating it. I thought I'd turn though to foreign affairs because, of course, a big part of what's been dominating the news for the last, about 14 days now has been the attacks on Iran, initially by Israel and then by the United States, by this guy. And I just wanted to pick up on a couple of very quick points. And actually just to say, because timely, someone from the US, hello there to Susan, from if I can see that rightly, lovely to have you along. I just thought I'd make a couple of comments on this, because of course there is a ceasefire of sorts that is happening at the moment between Israel and Iran. And I say of sorts because it's not really a formal ceasefire. It's basically, if you don't fire things at us, we won't fire back at you. To date, it's holding. Personally, I'm skeptical it will hold for too long, and I hope I'm wrong on that, to make that a very awkward sentence, because I think particularly Iran, its raison d'etre, its purpose is a religious zealotry. They genuinely want and believe they have to destroy Israel, and they will keep pushing and trying. Israel, of course, too, is very keen on the preemptive side of things. If they sense any threat, they will strike. They would argue, from their perspective, they didn't fight back. They weren't aggressive enough, if you will, in times past. I think particularly in the 30s and 40s, and terrible things happened. So they're determined not to fall into that trap. But what I've just been struck with in recent days is how the mainstream media is reporting one leaked intelligence report. So, of course, President Trump has come out, along with most of his administration, saying that the Iranian nuclear facilities, all three of them, have been completely obliterated and destroyed. Then a couple of days ago, one of the intelligence agencies, I think it was the Defense Intelligence Agency, put out an initial report saying, look, it may not have actually done as much damage as we'd like. It was leaked, which in itself, I would say, if you're in the intelligence space, is a worry. Media jumped on it across the world, and certainly here in New Zealand, very quickly. And the 2 points I really want to make is, one, of course, and you'll understand it, is an attack on Donald Trump outright. Anything to attack the man. They barely can give him an accolade. At the end of the day, I would argue, not only by the use of those massive ordinances have they done damage to Iran's nuclear facilities, but shortly afterwards, this ceasefire has been agreed. If this was Biden or Obama, Hillary Clinton or whoever, massive accolades, Nobel Peace Prizes, but here, near silence, and now attack. Oh, well, he's saying they're destroyed, his administration's saying it's destroyed, but here's this leaked document saying that it's not. Again, it's all really just anything to attack Trump. But here's the second point, which I think is important, particularly for those very left and far left people who are delighting in this defense intelligence report. If it is that Iran's capabilities have not been completely destroyed, the United States and Israel will hit them again. And I don't know if those in media have fully clicked to that. Again, those delighting around this leaked report, only one of many reports, it was only an early report, and look, it could be right. But that's my point. If it is right, if Iran's capabilities have not been completely degraded, they'll strike again. It's as simple as that, because they're not going to ever allow this Islamic Republic of Iran to have nuclear weapons. Small point, but I thought I'd raise it. Speaking of that too, there's been the NATO summit at the moment. I'm not sure how much worth it was. I mean, it's obviously up to the Prime Minister to report on that, but looking from a distance, and I just thought I'd share it. It turned out there's a group called the IP4, so there's NATO, which of course New Zealand is not part of, but the Indo-Pacific 4, so that's the likes of New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, and I've forgotten who the fourth one is, and I apologise to that country. They're just like associates. What was interesting is New Zealand was the only one to send a Prime Minister. All the rest were ministers, like a Minister of Foreign Affairs and so forth, very junior in comparison. So that's not going to go down too well. This is why I'm not so sure it was a useful trip, both to NATO as a whole, but also the Americans, that this little side group of, I don't know, associates again. We're not part of NATO. That we didn't prioritise it. New Zealand did, which is a positive, but I think as a whole, this IP4, if all that's been sent are ministers, not prime ministers, is not going to be seen as that relevant. Because remember, at NATO, you have President Trump and Sir Keir Starmer and Macron from France, like all the top dogs, and the IP4 sent, Christopher Luxon and a couple of other ministers. The other thing too, I'm sort of surprised that they would think Trump would want to meet with New Zealand, particularly in light of everything that's been happening around this Iranian situation. And why do I say that? Because New Zealand hasn't taken any sides. It has not supported the United States. It has not supported Israel at all. In fact, New Zealand has prevaricated around so much of this area and topic. So I'm just not surprised that Trump and others weren't racing to meet New Zealand. So anyway, just thought we'd make that quick comments there. I'm just looking here. Sue quite rightly asked, how would Kamla Harris have dealt with this? We just don't know. I doubt she would have had the strength, though, to do ultimately what the Republican administration or the Trump administration has done. Probably would have happened eventually. I mean, the system is bigger than one person, but I think it's an exceptionally good comment. So I'm just yes, Australia. Sue is telling me about the IP4. See, I need more Sues in my life, because I was trying to think, it must be Australia or India, but then are they already linked to NATO in some way? But as I say, foreign engagements is always important for New Zealand. But I just think it's a little bit funny for a government here. I mean, these are my former colleagues, but they've taken no position around what the United States and others have done. They seem to be okay that Iran could potentially have had a bomb. They're saying, as I mentioned the other day, naive things, that, we just need to get back around the table and talk, as if we haven't been talking for 40 plus years with this despotic regime. So all of that gets noted. That's what embassies and consulates are doing here in New Zealand, as ours are overseas, constantly reporting back. So Trump, the Americans, NATO, all know that New Zealand is very, well, as I say, prevaricating and quite naive into this space. And overall, too, this little side grouping of 4 countries from the Indo-Pacific, the IP4, the fact that there was basically very low representation, except for New Zealand, does not put the whole group into a good space. It's good for New Zealand, if you will. It's good that Chris Luxon as the Prime Minister was there, but as a whole, I think NATO will be seeing this as a relatively irrelevant grouping. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens there. So there's that. Hey, just a reminder while I'm catching my breath and a coffee, that family forum is coming up quick. August is just around the corner. So if you haven't signed up yet, please do. Bob and I would love to have you there. It's usually a sellout. Last year was. And it's a great time to socialise and to network. Oh, that was the last point. I just thought this was quite funny. I mean, headlines are headlines. New Zealanders and Israel are not leaving. They're leaving Iran, but they're not leaving Israel. And my only comment on that is I'm not surprised. And when I was there recently, granted, it wasn't the airstrikes we were seeing in recent weeks, but Israel's an exceptionally safe place to live. Good infrastructure, as I say, generally very, very safe. And even with the current war going on, well, not really a war, I shouldn't actually use that term, it's not actually strictly a war, but with the conflict occurring at the moment between their defences and the safe rooms, you're statistically relatively safe. So it didn't surprise me, was all I wanted to say on this. I think it's a small part of, again, mainstream media trying to sort of stir things up. It's sort of an expectation that everyone would flee the country, but why would they need to do that? And I think it also says something about the nature of Israel itself. Hey, look, in slightly weirder, I think Bob and I might talk about this tonight as well. I saw this headline early on, and initially my mind went to some very problematic places. Went, oh my Lord, what were they doing? So OnlyFans, as you know, is a content-driven, basically pornography site. And as I say, Bob and I will delve into this a little bit more this evening on Political Playback. But basically, first and foremost, nothing was actually done to cows. There we go, just to say that to you early in the morning. But I think it was 3 basically porn producers, women, were doing things in cow sheds. Anyway, striking that SAFE, the animal activists, are outraged that someone might be doing sexual acts around cows or in cow sheds. Now, I'm not a fan of pornography as such, but you know, I was going to say I'm not so prudish that, you know, it's the end of the world, that somehow in a cow shed is better or worse than another place. So I just thought it was interesting how these animal activists who, you know, no respect for the unborn, for example, or a host of other issues in society, are now exceptionally worried that a cow might have seen some sort of porn actress. But the second part of it all is just to draw your attention, because I'm only going to be brief on this, to a podcast I did a little while ago with Victoria Sinis. And why I want to draw that to attention, Victoria was part of one of the agencies that used to recruit particularly young girls to be part of this OnlyFans. And one of the many things she shared, and I think it's relevant to the cow case, is how the nature of this OnlyFans site drives more and more crazy behaviour. Obviously more and more sexualised behaviour, but more depraved, more crazy. And so I just thought it was important to remind everyone that it's there. Obviously, this is weird. Obviously pornographic. As a person, I don't think the cows care or mind. They don't really have the capacity. I think, again, the activists just show themselves to be deluded. Again, they're not worried about the pornography. That's probably the key point around this. The activists aren't worried about the pornography per se. They're worried about the cows that weren't involved. Very strange. As I say, these are the same people who want us to save whales but don't care about the death of the unborn child. So jump though on to Family Matters. You can find that on YouTube or on our Family First Facebook page. Look up Victoria Sinis or look up that title, Inside OnlyFans, and it's a fascinating discussion with her as she breaks down how the very society operates. Society does operate, but how OnlyFans operates and why you do end up with situations like, you know, porn stars in cow sheds, as strange as that is. Look, I'm conscious of time, so I will begin to wrap things up. As I say, Bob and I are on tonight with Political Playback, but remember, Bob and I do these shows every morning, so I'm on Tuesdays and Thursday. Bob actually has his 500th episode coming up. No, sorry, that's the Mick blog. Apologies, with his Mick blog. So obviously, that's right. Where is it? So this one here. So if you go onto substack.com, you'll find Bob's Mick blogs. He writes very, very regularly. He's about to have, or I think he's just released his 500th. So congratulations to Bob. If you're also interested, you can jump onto mine. I haven't been able to write this week, but I also have a Substack talking on an array of issues. And of course, I'm also a host at RCR, Reality Check Radio, and my most recent interview here is with Alex Lee from something called Doc Edge. So it's the documentary filmmakers here in New Zealand, and they hold a festival. So Alex is one of the directors of the festival, which draws various documentaries together. And actually, there are awards here in New Zealand which take those people to the Oscars, which is fantastic. And Rosie's noting that she's watched the 500th McBlog this morning. So Bob, of course, not only writes the McBlog that you can access on the likes of Substack, but he also records it. So that is fantastic. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. I think I'm just scrolling very, very quick. Now, I'll get to the other things next week. There is never any shortage. As I say, make sure if you want, you can always subscribe and like our content. So if you're on YouTube, subscribe, like and follow us on Facebook, on X, on LinkedIn, wherever you find Family First. But in the meantime, I just hope you have a wonderful rest of the day this Thursday. Enjoy the weekend ahead. I look forward to seeing some of you tonight, as I say, 5 p.m. live with Political Playback, or otherwise we'll see next. Well, Rosie's saying that Bob even wore a jacket today. Well, that is telling you something. I just went with the t-shirt. All right, guys, I better roll. You have a wonderful day. It's been great having you as part of the show.